Alright guys, continuing our Halpi's Rift campaign, I bring you a battle report in the Abyssal Plane. Hello there! I like to watch battle reports to get better at games. So I started making short, summarized battle reports that focus on learning points. So welcome to my channel, Newbie Dice. Do like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you enjoy my videos. Welcome back. So with the Abyssal Plane, we left the material plane, and in the campaign I made a little bit of fluff. Feel free to skip ahead to 14 minutes and 10 seconds if you're not interested in the fluff. The fluff was done by combining everybody's backstory. So some of the players, they made backstories for their armies, and also they are encouraged to make battle reports. So they came with all sorts of flavors. Some were very serious and very fantasy, high fantasy in their backstories. Some were just goofing around, so I sort of incorporated all of it. In fact, one of the players wrote his battle reports in poems, so that was pretty interesting as well. So it's pretty much a mishmash of flavors, so I'll go through it right now. The Gorat Alliance mounted its attack on the Halpi Mountains, working their way towards Crackheart, the site of the Nexus. Each faction started their campaign from different regions. After breaking free of the Abyssal Dwarfs and forming her own Red Brood in the Halpi region itself, Karika's first order of business is to stop her captor's plan in Crackheart. Her advance was however intercepted by Magni Blackheart at the village of Doxcaro. Their battle ended in a stalemate, and both forces were forced to withdraw. But in Magni's desire to destroy Kariga, he tapped too much into the Eye of the Storm for his alchemist's curse, and instead heavily wounded himself. An unexpected lengthening of the battle allowed Kariga to retaliate and drain the life force from Magni. Magni's followers recovered his body and transferred his soul into the magma and iron body of an Infernox, and Magni is reborn. Lord Foker's arrival on the Halpi Mountains was immediately greeted by freaking dead people. The dead people were trying to push Foker's forces back to the ships, while the salamanders were trying to gain ground inland, suffering heavy losses but not losing ground. The battle grinded to another stalemate, but for some unknown reasons, Fokker wanted to write poems afterwards. Lord Fokker regrouped his forces and made another push to invade into Halpi lands. This time, Magni was there to stop him with his new body. Magni had so much bloodthirst that he abandoned his objective of holding back the salamanders and killed so many of the lizards. Tyrants went in, supported by salamanders primes, took out the golem bodyguards and invaded into the enemy ground. Lord Fokker's forces has finally a foothold on the Halpi Mountains, but Magni did not care cause he leveled up, swimming in experience points. Sir Rodrigo the Seed DS mobilized the Brother Mark and marched east and south towards the Halpi Mountains. First adversary in his crusade were the Brother Mark's nemesis, the forces of the Abyss, led by one seductress only known as the Seeker. Generations of hatred guided Rodrigo's strikes as he struck the Abyssals back into a retreat. Torgro Ironheart with his hammerheads led an expedition to help reclaim the free dwarfs, but was challenged by the tormented spirits of the Night Stalkers. With Eredin at their command, the dwarfs prevailed, but with great cost. Torgro and his hammerheads were slain. Berserker Lord Orsus took over command of the party and pressed forwards. They were delayed, however, when rumors of a plague spreading from their commander forced them to stay their ground for 3 days while they investigate the plague rumors. Queen Kariga replenished the ranks of her swarm and advanced for the Nexus once again. This time she was faced with Sakura and her retinue of Longhorns. In the bitter battle, Kariga lost many shock troops but managed to rout the herd and push the advance. For reasons unknown, the Fey Priestess Sovari has marked a query on Galadriel and the accompanying force. Such is her determination that even as the Trident Realms switched alliance to join the Sylvan Kin, that she has still executed an invading attack. The declaration alone has caused the Sentinels to be outcast from the alliance of Ilios, and now the elves find themselves in an uneasy truce with the men and dwarves they were originally aimed to destroy. Galadriel defected to Ilios as she hoped the secrets of the Nexus can help improve her cursed Naiad form. Sovari, however, could not stop the oncoming tide, and the archers survive a massive assault and hold the line as their general escapes to regroup. The Abyssal Fiend's arrival was inevitable and intolerable. Drawn towards the emerging magic with a reckoning as powerful as a storm, the Abyss's Seeker could smell Sovari licking her wounds and launched an attack. Brother Brutes proceeded to decimate Earth Elementals, claiming their treasures. Their glee at claiming treasures was not to last long, as alchemical concoctions and arrows sent them back to the origin. Their treasures were lost and reclaimed by their foes. The forces of the Seeker had lost again, with many of their own, including the Seeker, once more returning to the origin. But they all know their summons was inevitable once more. Lances smashed into obsidian as Rodrigo's forces met with Magni's golems. As the battle lines neared, Rodrigo spotted Dravak stood isolated on the left flank, seemingly alone. Heavy mortar fire decimated foot guards, and a cruel twist of fate caused Magni's offensive to fail in routing 3 units that he could. This sealed the victory for Rodrigo as he forced Dravak into a retreat and cuts down the mortar crew. Upon his retreat, Magni was waylaid by the Kinki Orc forces led by Kinka and Kinchu. Meat was no match for Obsidian, however, as Magni still has enough left in him to claim a victory, as Dravak and him retreated to defend the Nexus. The spirits of the army rose when the Brother Mark entered the Hill of Endor. The scouts had reported numerous ruins, cairns, and burrows along the line of march, and soldiers were ever the suspicious lot. More so when men started disappearing at night. It did not take long to discover the undead barring their path. Lichy Lich was really mad. That blasted witch had hurt him bad. Into the hills he went to brood, to lighten up this blackest mood. The moonlit host followed behind. Up and up the path did wind. Then suddenly the fog did part, and rage then entered Lichy's heart. He spied a force of living men, a lesson he would teach them then. Of the 2 armies there were almost nothing left. Lichy's slaves now felt alone and bereft. They clobbered hateful spirits with glee, but in the end they had to flee. They would gather up and restore their lord, with magic spells and forbidden word. The living may have won today, but death is patient and would have its way. As the Gorath alliance is gaining ground, the Ilios alliance is forced to retreat into the underground tunnels of the Cracked Heart, where the Nexus resides. Vast underground caverns large enough to hold entire armies greeted the Gorath alliance's cautious advance. Galadriel's Trident Realm forces lay hidden in the caverns to ambush on the Gorath alliance. Then, with another pulse of the Nexus's power, tormented souls began to fill the underground chambers. More Night Stalkers, Sir Rodrigo cursed. Swords drawn and ready to fight, the spirits instead attacked the hidden Trident Realm forces. The Night Stalkers routed the Trident Realm, and their leader, the horror known only as Trapped in Nightmares, spoke to Sir Rodrigo. We are the lost souls from eons past, tricked into exploring forbidden ancient magic by the Celestian known as the Big Wang. These ancient powers are not to be trifled with. The power of the Nexus has ripped the veil between our dimensions, but I fear it has unleashed more unspeakable aberrations. We must seal the Nexus at all costs. With their newfound ally, the Gorath Alliance has the numbers advantage over Ilios, and they pushed deeper into Cracked Heart. Finally, the twisting tunnels open up into a massive underground hall. The hall is so huge that even the largest city could fit in it. A glow of greenish blue fills the hall as they find the source of unnatural illumination at the end of the hall. The backlight casts the figures in front of it in shadows, but from the different outlined forms, from horned dwarfs, finned men, flying-tailed demons to satyrs and apparitions, it was clear to Sovari. The entire Ilios alliance stood at the ready. "Let's Langa them," said Kinka. Fuck him up, agreed Lord Fucker. Kariga's hatred for the Abyssal Dwarfs filled the hall with a mental shockwave, while Lord Ursus channeled the rage of the Red Curse, readying himself for battle. Sir Rodrigo immediately applied his military tactics and grouped the Alliance forces into rough formations before they charged headlong into the enemy. The Ilios forces were outnumbered. Galadriel's recently routed forces were not ready to fight. Even with the Seeker, Sakura, their own Night Stalker ally Eredin, and the non-stop rhyming of Leechy Leech, Magni Blackheart knew the battle was not in their favor. Dravak has occupied himself with studying the power of the Nexus in hopes that it will unleash magical powers in favor of the Ilios Alliance. Magni, however, took a more practical approach. After several setbacks and witnessing Dravak's cowardly retreat, Magni concluded that he needed to bolster his strength. After all, he had planned to usurp Dravak of its power. To do so, he would require help. Clan Ogrim, the largest clan of the Ogres, would do. Promising to share the powers of the Rift with him, Magni hired Yao Ogrim's army, and they were due to arrive to attack the Gorath's Alliance's rear any time now. The hall rumbled with thundering of hooves, as the Gorath forces looked behind them to see a sea of ogres pouring towards them. "What is the meaning of this?" Dravak demanded. "Your time is over, Dravak Dalkin." Magni spoke with his obsidian voice. "I have purchased the services of Yao Ogrim, and after they have disposed of the Gorath Alliance and you, I shall reign supreme." "How dare you try to dethrone me?" Dravak's voice was hysterical, incredulous of Magni's treachery. "You will not be the only one with tricks up his sleeve." Dravak Dalkin began muttering words of an ancient language, and the Nexus started to glow brighter. He ended his incantation and proclaimed, "Mighty Oscan, deliver me to victory!" An explosion of light blinded everyone in the hall as a dark, menacing voice drummed in everyone's ears. "Soon I shall roam free." No one knew how his voice sounded like, but they immediately knew who he was. Oscan, the leader of the Wicked Ones, the mightiest god trapped in the heart of the abyss. "Welcome to my domain. You shall suffer here while I drain your power to free myself of my prison. Dravak, you and your forces will have my blessing to help me with my task." As eyes recovered from temporary blindness, forces found themselves in the sight of fire and lava separated from one another. Welcome to the Abyssal Plane. New campaign additions: XP for players who lost, and when players hit max XP, the XP gain will be slowed down. Players on the Ilios Alliance will have a free Blessing of the Cronius that can be applied to any combat once per game, and we encourage players to exchange their lists on the day of their battle over digitally so that they can read up each other's list ahead of the game. That's to help newbies understand their opponent's list as well. With the Alliance separated in the Abyssal Plane, Kariga was trying to find her allies in the land of fire and lava. She came across one of Sovari's scouts, covered in blood and injuries. The forces of Nature Trooper told her that Yao Ogrim had laid waste to their forces, and their leader Sovari was missing. The scout pointed to the direction where their forces were defeated, and Kariga made her way to deal with the new adversary. So here's my list for the Abyssal Plane. So I've decided to go a bit more shooting heavy because in the Abyssal Plane there's this spell called Scorched Earth, which basically strips Pathfinder and Strider and makes charges always hindered. We believe it doesn't work on counter charges though, but for normal charges, that means you always be -1 to hit. So because of that, I think that it doesn't favor melee a whole lot for Abyssal Plane, but I think it's a bit tough to judge just based on one spell. But it also has channeling effects that deals damage, and it can be done from range. So with that, I decided to go a bit more ranged heavy with my list. So I still have a core of 3 hordes of shock troops, and then I have my brood mothers, And of course, this is our campaign game with additional campaign rules with leveling up of one bodyguard unit and one general. So you can check out the campaign information in the first battle report video, and I'll link it in the top right. So next, I have 2 Death Engine spewers. So I think 2 is the right number for the spewers. They are quite costly, but they do potentially are able to put out a lot of hurt. The key thing about them is you want to move for the first turn and then stay there for the rest of the game. So whenever you move, they don't have steady aim. So whenever you just adjust them, they might have -1 to hit, which greatly affects their damage output. So you want to just move up and stay there for the rest of the game and keep shooting. And you are fighting against Death Engine spewers. You want to go around them and force them to turn around and face you. Even they turn around and shoot at you, they get -1 because turning around will affect their shooting accuracy. So I have 1 shredder. So after the 2 Death Engine spewers and of course the 3 Horde of Shock Troops, I don't have much points left. So I want to take some cheap shooting units. So I started with 1 shredder, wanted that long range shooting 48 inches so that I can get some shots in early and against the big part of the board as well. I do have a troop of claw shots as well further down the list. And then yeah, I decided 1 shredder will be enough because it has the shattering effect, right? So I just need to apply it once. So multiple shredders shooting into 1 target unit, the shattering doesn't stack, so it's not worthwhile. And then I have my usual tango. I think it's quite important because it has that fury to mitigate wavering. And I have what's left, just 1 brute enforcer and 1 unit of vermintide. Brute enforcers, they are rally bubble, and very often I use him as a chaff piece as well at the late game or even earlier game. I charge him in to chaff things up, and it can ground flyer, so I give it a blade of slashing to ground flyers a little bit more reliably. It does have crush 2 and melee 3, so that's pretty reliable. And it's defense 5 with 11-13 nerf, and with rally 2 nearby, it'll be 13-15. So it's surprisingly very hardy for 75 points, 80 in this case because of the blade. So my opponent, he's playing ogres, and he's pretty new to trying Red Goblin Blaster, so he brought 2 in his list. And there's a usual core of 2 Siege Breakers. He decided to bring 1 Horde of Boomers, 2 Regiment of Berserker Braves, 2 Red Goblin Scouts for chaff, Rebel for a bit of chaff as well, and 1 Giant Army Standard, and Nomagarok, and his general is the Ogre Warlock, and that is Yao Ogrim. So let's look at our deployment, and we are playing Plunder. So I'm gonna add in the stuff over here, and we'll just go through this. Well, I guess you can just go down the list. I think I forgot to label this, which is Red Goblin Scouts over here. So the key thing about this is Plunder. There's the tokens, the 2 2-point tokens are over here, left side, right? 2 and the 1 in the center. So I've decided very early on that I'll only go for the left half of the board, or rather 2/3 of the board. And I totally ignore this side. So I just throw 1 Brute Enforcer to sort of delay things, give them a reason to face forward, right? If I don't have 1 unit here, he might just turn straight away. Nonetheless, this Brute Enforcer might not be enough to threaten him to turn around straight away, but at least this one, the Brute Enforcer on the right, gives him some thinking to do. So next, I won the first turn, and this is the part I don't really like about loot tokens. Just because I won first turn, I moved up just slightly less than 12 inch, because the tokens, although on the middle of the board, they have some width, right? They have a diameter, they have a radius. So I moved just slightly short of 12 inches, but I could pick up all 3 tokens over here, here, and here. Okay, and with that, the only thing that could charge me is the Berserker Braves here, because they do have D3 wild charge on top of speed 6. But the rest of the army is speed 6. The Giant could have charged because it threats 14, but unfortunately it's not in threatening range. So this pretty much made it an uphill battle for the opponent already straight away, which is something I really don't like about loot token scenarios, especially when they're across the middle line. Then, of course, I guess the solution is to bring faster units, right, that can threaten, but sometimes they come at a premium. Like my shock troop hordes, they do have phalanx, so that's another issue. So maybe you make it impossible to pick up on turn 1 or something like that. At least that gives the opponent a chance. So let's go down to the bottom of 1. So expectedly, he pushed his chef up. So the Goblin Scouts in front of the Siege Breakers on the left. Yeah. The Berserker Braves came in. I think dealt substantial amount of damage to this shock troop horde, and some shooting goes into this unit of shock troops. And yeah, Chef came up, Rebel, Goblin Scouts. Now the Giant started turning around, yeah, and then the Berserker Braves swerved to the other side to deal with my Brute Enforcer. So next, top of 2. So this is before my opponent's hand. This is his bottom of 2 where he starts to charge back in. But basically, my shock troop horde on the left charged and killed the red goblin scouts that was screening the the siege breakers. Okay, and then what happened is I pumped my shooting into this. What's this called? The red goblin blaster here. I was hoping to waver it, and because if it's wavered, then it can't charge in. I think the other blaster was out of range. So if I could neuter this, at least only the siege breaker would be charging in. And I popped the plague pots also. This token over here is the plague pots. I popped all 3 here, and here. Yeah, but so since I dealt some damage to the blaster, but I didn't waver it, it's all wasted because it's gonna charge in and explode anyway. So over in the middle, I killed off the Berserker Braves, and I killed off the other 2 units of goblins. One is the rebel, one is the scouts. I probably shot one and charged the other. Yep. So I think I charged the rebel because it seems like I slid towards the left, and then I shot off the red goblin scouts, which is probably the safer thing to do because the red goblin scouts have low nerf. So because I popped the pots, and oh yes, one more thing, as I charged all my shock troops out, I dropped the token before I charged. So you can see that the token on the left is over here, ready for my Brute Mother to pick up. Okay, so that's placing the token behind my front line, so it's very difficult for the opponent to get it now. This unit, I think it's held on to the token because it's not being threatened at this stage, while this unit dropped it and my general Kariga was there to pick it up. So next. So what happened here is my opponent's boomers shot the shock troops, and these shock troops were injured by the Berserker Brave. So it took a total of 10 damage, and it rolled enough to waver me. So yep, he rolled not Snake Eyes, Box Cast to waver me, and that's on top of me having the stealthy, right? And from the plague pots. So for these shock troops over here, he actually charged his standard barrel in. He decided not to charge his siege breakers now since that thing is active, the plague pots. The giant is still making his way, so now he has stepped into the forest, and I'm able to he's able to see and charge next round. So my response, let's see. I don't have my top of 3 pictures, but we'll figure out what happened from the bottom of 3. Basically, the boomers are gone. Yeah, the boomers are gone. I killed it off with shooting because I think I have been shooting from top of 1, top of 2, and top of 3. I've shot it off after a few rounds. I do have my shredder and claw shots in the back that kept shooting. Right on top of this death engine who's been parked and shooting since round 2. I do have my Brute Mother. That this one has the staff that shoots. It actually has elite and vicious as well. and there's drain life if it comes into combat. So I shot it off, although I also screened it. So in case I don't, if in case I don't shoot it off, I do have these rats to stop it from charging these guys. And if they shoot, at least it's in cover. Well, over on the left, you can see that I charged the siege breaker once, right? He charged into me with plague pots. I charged back into him once, and then now he charged the siege breaker into me again, and he sent the second blaster in. So this unit took with plague pots, one siege breaker and one blaster, and then without plague pots, one siege breaker and one blaster. So the top of 3 I shot at the blaster again, hoping to waver it and failing to waver it again, right? So I failed it twice. So totally wasted shots on the 2 blasters basically. But hey, good news is I have already I have charged the what do you call this, the siege breakers once, right? So they have taken some damage. So let's see what happens next. And I did oh yeah, if you see this tangle turn around, right, and with this yellow token over, this yellow angled token over here, it's Bin Chan. So I did hit this back with Bin Chan. So then over on the right side, the 2 units clash in, and look at this, 19, and I held. This unit has 24, 26 nerf, and that's due to our campaign. So the nerf is pretty high, and so it held. And even if it was wavered, it's okay because I have the Fury Aura. So next, let's see, top of 4. So what I decided to do here was a little bit strange. Let's go from the left first. So what I did was my Brood Mother did not pick up the token. I moved up to basically chef block the Siege Breaker, so it cannot get this token here. And I think even 6 inches forward after killing me will not be able to pick it up. I think that's how I position it. And then my Brood Mother proceeded to drain life while this guy over here, the Death Engine Spewer, shot at it. And guess what? I wavered it. So that Siege Breaker is not going anywhere. And second round of shooting is probably going to take it out. Over here in the middle, let's see what was blocking. So I charged this, I think it's normal Garok. It's protecting the flank, I think. Yeah, it's protecting the flank of the Siege Breakers. So I charged into the normal Garok and killed it. And then I repositioned. And then my rats here, the Vermin type, charged into the Warlock that's behind. This is the previous round. So it nimble charged in. And hopefully to stop its shooting. I don't remember whether I dealt any damage. I think no, because I don't see any tokens or dice. So the unit of shock troops here countercharged the giant. So it dealt some damage, but it's not enough, obviously. 1 round of combat is not enough to take out a giant. So I think I did this because I knew that this unit would be able to charge the Siege Breakers next. And the Siege Breakers can't even charge it back because it's sandwiched between the 2 units. There's rats to the back of it, so it can't really swivel around at all. It can only charge forward and slide. So expectedly, this shock troop horde did go down. And then what happened next? I think once again, I was missing a picture. And so bottom of 5. You notice that let's talk about the right side for a short while. The siege break, this is the Berserker Braves has been dancing, has been moving forward, and my Brute Enforcer has been dancing around forward and back, delaying him as long as possible. In the end, he decided to ignore me, pick up the token and turn around. So I charged it, and now it countercharged me back. So at this point of the game, it's pretty much out of the game already. So let's talk about the left side. So the Siege Breakers got wavered the last round. The second round, I shot it off. And so my Death Engine Spewer or the Brood Mother can pick up the token. This is worth 2 points. The 1 point token was in that middle unit of Shock Horde. It charged the what's this? The Siege Breakers, probably with Wing Chan, and dealt some damage to it. But yeah, 1 round is not gonna take out Siege Breakers, right? So and then the siege breakers counter charged and took the token from it. Maybe I could have dropped it. I guess I didn't realize. I think I could have dropped it so that a unit behind could have picked it up instead. And the giant was taken one round of attacks from the shock troops, and now the shooting finished it off. So you can see there's the claw shots here. There is the shredder over here. There's this bell over here, the spewer, and then there's the drain life over here. So pretty much enough to take it out. Next. And so because the siege breakers were injured, I shot it off. So end of the game, I'm holding the tokens over here and over here. Yeah, the two death engines will pick it up. And that's the end of the game. So learning points. Let's talk about Halpi's Rift and especially the Abyssal Plane. So firstly, there's a lot of damage dealing in the Abyssal Plane. And let's look at the table over here. So if you ever have to choose between 3 and 4, yeah, 4 is always better because D3 damage is better than -1 nerf. Firstly, -1 nerf is not permanent. What the damage is permanent. And even 1 damage is equivalent to -1 nerf that stays forever. The only thing is that this one, it happens at the start of the game, so they must not be engaged in melee. But you could deal damage and then charge into it, right? So this is always better. And Abyssal Planes, the table is quite good. So there is Elite Vicious if you want more efficient combat, effective combat. And there's also Waiver Mitigation in Fury and Headstrong. Okay. So I think I didn't roll the Headstrong. Or maybe I failed Headstrong when my shock troops got Waiver. I think I failed Headstrong. I think I remember it being a very epic moment. So next, Scorched Earth is not as strong as expected. I think I forgot to cast it once as well. And on top of that, because once everything gets charged in, right, then counter charge. If we assume that counter charge will not be hindered, even with Scorched Earth, then yeah, it's not as effective as one thinks, especially if you're the one that charges first, which happens quite a few times in this game. So next, general top tips for the game. So do not commit to the sides that the opponent is not contesting. I think especially for my deployment, when I only put one Brute Enforcer on the right side, right? And especially when I know I'm not going to put much on the right side, I tend to put a drop down early first, because when you put a drop down early and you still have lots of drops to go, it might trick the opponent into thinking you might put more on the right. So I put the Brute Enforcer probably pretty early in the game, and then I did not drop any more on that side. That probably caused the opponent to overcommit more than one unit, right? There's 2 units, the Giant and the Berserker Braves, and even that is so much more expensive than my one Brute Enforcer over there. And I think that's one of the key one of the key parts of the game that helped me win the game, because he has 300 over points. 300 over points, yeah, that's not in the game basically, while I only have 75 points that's out of the game. So when you're playing Plunder, right, focus on just getting 4 victory points, right? There is 7, 2 pointers and 3 1 pointers. There's 7 victory points on the board. Just focus on getting 4 of it and give up the 3, or at least spend as little effort as possible to delay him, your opponent. So of course, for my bot scenario case, is once I try to get 4, is might as well get 5, right? So that's why I got the 5 victory point tokens. So next, loot tokens. So when you pick it up, you can always pass it backwards. So like what I did, I drop and then I charge forwards, and then the second wave unit picked it up. Okay, even if the opponent's in your face, right, in your grill, right, what you could also do is multi-charge, because when you multi-charge, you slide sideways, right? You roughly move sideways half the distance of the opponent's base. So you could still have dropped that token, and then because you slide sideways, and then another unit comes in, it could pick it up. So this is very useful when your token carrying unit is injured, right? Because it's in the front. So when you double charge, you put it down. As you slide sideways, it makes space for your other unit to come in and pick up that token. So your token is transferred to a fresh unit, and you can keep doing this to sort of daisy chain your token passing it backwards, or sideways to safety. So what I do like about combined arms in my Ratkin list is that you'll notice that my shock troops died first. But because I have enough shooting, I could take out all his remaining units with shooting. So even on the left, the shock troop died first before I killed the siege breakers. In the middle, the siege breakers outlasted the middle shock troops, and on the right, the giant outlasted the right shock troops, but they all were shot down after one round of combat. So that's pretty awesome. Lastly, my opponent did a very cool thing when I popped the plague pots, was to charge, delay the charge by charging in the standard barrier, right? So I think, yeah, so if you can make the Ratkin player waste his plague pots, that's very good. So if you can delay that one round, wait out the plague pots without losing too much, it's always a plus. So with that, I've come to the end of battle report. So do stick around for the next battle report, which if I'm not wrong, will be in the Empyrean plane. If you enjoy my battle reports, do like, subscribe, and hit the bell notifications. It will really mean a lot to me, and I'll really appreciate it. Thank you, and see you in the next video.